Well, it's almost positively wintry today. We've had, how can I describe it, a dusting of snow. It's barely covered the ground over much of where it snowed in a heat of a flurry overnight. And probably because there's barely any snow, it'll mean that there's multiple school closures and everybody's heating's broke. It's always funny how the minute there's any sign of snow, school boilers automatically shut down, they break down. Very strange that, and yet it happens year after year. But a delightful scene here at Clipstone Old Quarter. I've just come for a bit of a walk round just to blow away the cobwebs. So we'll see if we can find any similarly wintry scenes, but unfortunately the snow comes to an end very soon. In fact, it comes to an end in about 20 yards time, as you can see. Bit of snow on the path, and then there's nothing. However, snowfall is rare in Nottinghamshire now, usually restricted to lying on the ground for about 24 hours if we're lucky. But they are promising potentially some more snow, but we'll see. Anyway, that's the way we're heading on this little wheezy wander. We're being imposed on by a rather noisy jay. You'll hear it screech, no doubt. There it is. You may well see it fly across the top of the trees in a minute, or it's gone away. But there is a new avian face here today, Clipstone Old Quarter, and it's a Scandinavian thrush, one of two which arrive in the UK and spend the winter in the UK. But the one in particular, the new face, is a fieldfare. You don't get fieldfare here very often. Fieldfares usually are more birds of open fields. Oh, there goes another jay. There were two after all. But Scandinavian thrushes, such as fieldfare, usually spend the winter in large flocks on open grassy fields. But if those fields do get frosted and the ground becomes too hard, then they will look elsewhere and often visit old apple trees in gardens and any trees with berries on. But at Clipstone Old Quarter, they are uncommon in any numbers, but there's a few here today. It's usually redwing that occurs here and within Sherwood Forest. They're more of a woodland bird, less inclined to be out in the grassy fields of Nottinghamshire. Even a couple of missel thrushes by the sounds of that. Just arrived. That rattling call at the top of the trees towards the left of the screen. All is happening here today. Looks quite nice, that. I say that it does look potentially interesting the next few days, although I suspect that it's going to get milder after another couple of cold days. The way the cold air is positioned in the UK and the snow has come down in parts, namely the northeast of the UK and the eastern parts of Scotland, I believe, makes it very interesting from an ex-bird watcher's point of view, or an ex-visible migration watcher's point of view. It's typical, if the snow keeps falling in those areas and maybe comes down the eastern side of the UK more, we could get some cold weather movements. Now, cold weather movements of birds are quite rare, to be honest now, but when they occur, they are things of marvel. Absolutely stunning days of visible migration induced by the birds trying to fly southwest and west to avoid the worst of any potential cold snap in a UK winter. But I don't think we're at that stage yet. Although there is a decent covering in certain parts of the northeast, it probably needs to be a bit more expansive to get a lot more movement going. And conditions have to be right. There are several factors. It usually has to be snow in the northeast or in Scotland, but preferably in the northeast or eastern counties of England. And the weather has to be fine after a period of snow, and it's usually on about first or the second day where most movement will occur. I remember one New Year's Eve, it was bitterly cold, and I was at Kingsmill Reservoir with lots of enthusiasm with Paul Naylor at the time. And we had lots of enthusiasm because the conditions were right, and the day dawned very much like this, blue sky, but very frosty, frostier than this. And then after an hour or so we had a snow shower, and we got a flock of skylark went through. We knew then that something could well be on the cards, and indeed it was. We had another snow shower, and then that snow shower became continuous, heavy snow. And the wind was northeasterly, if I remember right, and it brought the birds, masses of thrushes, fieldfares and redwings, and a huge movement of skylark. There were other species involved as well, species like lapwing, if I remember right, but the whole spectacle took place in driving thick snow. I had hair then, and it was frozen and in snowy dreadlocks almost. But what a day, a fabulous day we had. Very cold, yes, covered in snow, yes, but we recorded stuff that nobody else recorded that day because everybody else was tucked in. But we had one of the best bird watching days of either myself or Paul's bird watching career. It really can be quite a spectacle, cold weather migration. Whether we get it in the next couple of days, I don't know. Have to keep my eye open. But you can get some great days passage of skylarks and lapwings and winter thrushes. It's a beautiful day. It may be a touch on the cool side, but there are still hints of autumn as I stand here now. There's still quite a few of the oaks here that are still bearing leaf. Still elements of green on these trees, but the golden coloration seems to have gone now and has been replaced by the typical brown of oak leaves that are about to drop. Autumn's still hanging on despite the best efforts of the UK winter to try and barge in and announce itself on the UK public. Looks beautiful, doesn't it? It's just fabulous sunlight through trees. I mean, how it catches the now thawing frost and snow on the trees. Quite beautiful. Quite picturesque here today. Beautiful blue skies, a very clear atmosphere, but we do have a light northeasterly breeze. A couple of redwings fly over. And people somewhere down on the bottom path. But it's quite beautiful. Of course, even when there are large amounts of snow on the ground, or a hard frost or ice, as in this case, this sallow branch is covered with ice. How do these things survive? Because all around you, under your feet, in the leaf litter, under the loose bark, are invertebrates. Not all spend the winter completely exposed to whatever the elements can throw at them, like this purple emperor caterpillar. A couple of bullfinches close by often become far more audible, so to speak, during the colder months. Usually in pairs, very rarely in small groups, but you do get them in small groups of 4 or 5. Most of the bird calls that you'll hear in the wood during the winter months are contact calls, as birds familiarise themselves and alert their friends, so to speak, and the rest of the group where they are. It doesn't seem 5 minutes since I was walking along here on the night time looking for glowworms. Where has it all gone to? They're here still, of course, in the larval stage, tucked away. We never did find many glowworm larvae in the winter, or out of season, so to speak, but we did find some. One was on the corner, but all this used to be pines at one time, and there was some wire fencing, and found one under a log under there. Seemed to think that was covered in frost, or certainly in moisture. But glowworm larvae are difficult things to find during the winter months, but most often under logs or within rotten logs. It'll soon come round again before I'm parading my way up the grass strip looking for larvae. Possibly. Whether I do it this year or next year rather, I don't know yet. A lot to happen between now and March. And some cold weather movements by birds wouldn't go amiss. I'd quite like that. As long as the roads were relatively clear and it was easy to get out to Eakring. That's my preferred habitat for visible migration watching, but you can see it from anywhere. You can get flocks and flocks of lapwing flying low, all usually heading southwest or west. Very spectacular day or couple of days in the avian calendar, at least it was to myself. It'd be nice to catch a good day. But now I'm going to continue waltzing. The sun's coming out again. For some reason, a thin strip of cloud decided to move in and obscure the sun. It looks much better here when the sun's out. Well, a few weeks ago, this was the golden oak, as I described it, on a similar kind of day of glorious sunshine. This tree was covered in beautiful golden leaves. It's not got a leaf on it now. Looks very different to what it did the other week. Unfortunately, in its last decade or so of life. Yet, even once dead, this oak will go on providing a home for life for hundreds of years to come. Still one of my favourite trees. You may not see them until they fly, but the silver birches on the left of this path contain dozens, if not hundreds, of redpolls. Redpolls occasionally occur in large numbers, and this is a really good redpoll year. These are the highest numbers I've seen probably since about 1994, when we had the massive influx and had the Arctic redpolls in with them. Lovely little birds, redpolls. Lots of different races that, as they get rarer, they tend to get whiter. But these are quite happily feeding on the seeds of silver birches. That's what's attracted large numbers this year to this part of Sherwood Forest. But the delicate and delightful little chatter or conversation between this flock of redpolls has to compete with a man-made sound in the background or in the distance, and that's the sound of chainsaws. Any conservation work in Sherwood Forest invariably involves a chainsaw. They can't do anything without a chainsaw. But this is a sound that I prefer to hear. You might get an idea now of just how many there are. That's only part of the flock. If I had my binoculars, I'd be looking for mealy redpolls, which, as I mentioned, are rarer and much paler. Then there's Arctic redpolls, which are virtually white, beautiful pure white rump, tiny little bill, and very rare. But there are many more redpoll here than what we've just seen. A couple of weeks ago, there was a flock well in excess of 200. Beautiful little birds. Filming this little piece now because it's quiet. Chances are the next bit of filming I do won't be so quiet, because I'm heading up towards all the noise and the forestry work that's going on along the top path, by the sound of it. I need to go along there to reach the centre tree, and then it's a nice steady walk back down and hopefully away from the noise of man. 9 times out of 10, man creates the worst of noises on this planet. I think so. I like the sound of nature. I don't know what they're doing up there, but it sounds like they're doing a lot of it. We'll go and have a look. Well, thankfully this is one holly which the wreath makers have failed to locate. It is tucked away, so it should be safe, but there'd hardly be anything left of this. This is one of the best of the burying hollies that I know of here at Clipstone Old Quarter this year. It's an absolute belter. Beautiful. These hollies, they do take some stick from management, yet they're very, very important. Important more for birds than anything. They are used by invertebrates for overwintering, but they are used by the visiting redwings and other birds of the forest for overnight roosting. They get some cover and protection from the worst of the weather by the hard or relatively hard leaves of holly. And of course, it's the most wonderful and welcome food source for many birds. people tend to forget holly and its importance. Well, up on the top path, that's facing towards home, but I'm not going that way. Going this way, towards the centre tree. The work that's being done, it's probably just a lot of thinning of the silver birch. I don't know. You never know what they're going to do or what they are doing in their wisdom. But down there to the centre tree, and then we turn right and head back towards the car. Well, as you can see, I've found the work that's being undertaken and thinning work by the looks of it. And once again, it'll be the silver birch that is taking the brunt of the works here. The couple of silver birch trunks that are marked with the dreaded pink X. It's not a pink X, it's a blue spot. They won't be happy until they've eradicated the silver birch from this part of Sherwood Forest. They really won't. One of the annoying things about the work here especially is that although many will welcome the thinning of the trees down here, many of the trees that you can see just to the left of this track are large sallows, some of the best sallows that are in Sherwood Forest, and this is home to the purple emperor and to the purple emperor larvae that inhabit these sallows. And they inhabit these sallows because of the location, because a lot of these sallows are growing in shade. A key thing, shade and partial shade, for the development and growth of purple emperor larvae. The more it's thinned out, the less it becomes suitable for purple emperors and purple emperor larvae. Although they will use the shaded side of the trees, those trees growing in open situations aren't touched or utilised by female purple emperors when egg laying. It's just a shame that no thought, or little thought at all, seems to go into forestry management. The key thing seems to be thin trees out, thin the wood out. There's little or virtually no regard for the wildlife that's in it, certainly of an invertebrate capacity. And we're about to hear the demise of yet another tree in Sherwood Forest.